We're coming in hot with inspiring guests, witty banter, and colorful commentary for today's veterans and military community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Alphas. It's like a cheer. And I think you should do that when you come to the booth at convention. Alphas. And you will see Ashley 2.0, Ashley Marie Gudermuth. And how are you doing today? And how do you think you will be in Charlotte?
How am I doing today? I ran today, which is better than what happened yesterday when I ran because I waited until it gets hotter, like as the day goes on. I know that's a normal thing, but like by around 6 o'clock, it's like reached a peak of the heat. So yesterday I ran, it was 101. And
6 as in 1800?
Mm-hmm.
Or 6 as in, okay.
Yeah. And today I ran a little bit earlier in the day. So that's good. Not passing out yet. Lost.
How do you anticipate your mood being in Charlotte?
Pretty good because I was there recently and I got to see the landscape that is in Charlotte, and I like the trees. So
Trees of the Queen City. We're going to be there at the end of the month, and for all of you that are going to be there at the end of the month, I hope to see you. All right, cousin convention talk. Convention talk. That's a note to myself that I just read out loud. I'm glad it wasn't something embarrassing. At convention, we're going to have a community service event on Friday. So join me. Ashley won't be in town yet. Her private jet was booked for maintenance, and she's going to come in the next day. You're also going to want to see the exhibit hall because that's where we will be. And come say hi and do the alphas cheer. And we'll give you a little treat. I don't know what that'll be yet. But it'll be cool and fun and super exciting. You'll tell your grandkids about it. You can also go get your emblem sales goods, including your Be the One gear. I heard from a reliable source there's going to be good stuff for that, so we can continue to spread the word. Remember, the first of the month every month is Be the One day. And you're going to want to have some good stuff to wear. So, because you don't just want to represent, you want to be stylish. Okay. I don't have a clever transition to this one because it's of a serious nature. So, Ashley, do you want to
take it away?
Take over for this? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Biden signs historic order moving prosecution of military sexual assault outside chain of command. This is from CNN Politics. President Joe Biden on Friday ordered a historic change to the Uniform Code of Military Justice by transferring key decision-making authorities outside the military chain of command in cases of sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, murder, and other serious crimes. The order, which the administration is calling the most significant transformation of the military justice system since the UCMJ was established in 1950, officially implements changes passed by Congress as part of fiscal year 2022's National Defense Authorization Act, and comes 2 years after an independent review commission on sexual assault in the military, formed by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, recommended moving prosecution of sexual assault in the military outside the chain of command. Key among the changes in the order is the establishment of rules to govern the newly formed Offices of Special Trial Counsel, or OSTC, which, composed of a panel of independent military prosecutors, would make prosecutorial decisions involving sexual assault and other violent crimes. On a call with reporters previewing the executive order, a senior administration official called the move a turning point for survivors of gender-based violence in the military. These changes followed decades of tireless efforts by survivors, advocates, and members of Congress to strengthen the military justice system's response to gender-based violence, the official said. As Secretary Austin has said many times, this is a leadership issue, and we believe this historic order demonstrates that leadership. It took time for the Department of Defense to put the services in place, the White House said Friday, calling it a monumental change to the current system of military justice. You had to basically create a separate system just to handle these crimes. National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, John Kirby, told CNN's Kayla Tausch
I would think.
during a call with reporters. And that meant standing up offices. That meant manning those offices. That meant getting trained investigators and prosecutors in those offices and setting up the structure. And that just took a little bit of time.
Time is now.
The time.
Yeah, I mean, having it in the chain of command sets up some troubling conflicts of interest. If you're the commanding officer and it's one of your staff NCOs or officers that are helping you get the mission done, and you know it's going to be tough to replace them because a lot of times personnel is limited, you might be a little, I don't know, and it's been documented.
I don't see it that way. I mean, it might be the case, but I see it as like the commanders aren't trained in any of that. You know, like that's some pretty high level stuff. You're putting them in charge of, you know, they're talking about this terrible violence and murders, you know. It makes sense to have a specialized department for that to take care of it.
Well, I don't think that, I'm hoping at least that it's not some colonel somewhere going, you murdered somebody, 30 days restriction. And
No.
I think what happens is they decide whether to send, and obviously a murder would be sent to a general court martial, right? And I think that's up to that colonel to decide if they want to send things.
There's all kinds of processes that they have had in place for years where it goes to investigations, but all that is like internal. You take things like this and you make them a bit less internal,
Yep.
Maybe good things come out of it.
Let's hope they get it right, and that the little bit of time they took was used wisely to make the process the best that it can be. And if you have to take a little more time, in a little bit of time, please do it. All right. Today we're going to be joined, and of course this says we're totally switching gears again, from prosecuting bad people to really celebrating good people. Today we're going to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel Chris Reardon and Colonel Patricia S. Bacon Klop of Freedom Fitness America. Their organization tackles the issue of total fitness for military professionals by facilitating team building events that promote physical health, stress management skills, education on moral and ethical issues, healthy relationship practices, unit cohesion, and advanced leadership training. Lieutenant Colonel Reardon and Colonel Klop are still active Marines. Hoorah. So just a quick reminder that the views presented are those of the individuals we are interviewing and do not necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or any of its components. Keeping that in mind, we'll be back with Chris Reardon and Patty Klop right after the break.
Hello friends, I'm Mayor Vi Lyles, and we're excited to welcome you to Charlotte. The Queen City offers endless opportunities to craft personalized experiences that stretch well beyond our hotels and meeting spaces, beyond our newly expanded convention center located in the bustling heart of Uptown. You won't want to miss one-of-a-kind attractions like the U.S. National Whitewater Center, top-notch sporting venues, and hundreds of restaurants. For those of you looking to get out and explore, you can easily navigate the city aboard our light rail system. For lots of retail dining and nightlife, and hopheads rejoice. Charlotte has undoubtedly become a southeastern paradise for beer lovers, with so many craft breweries in our vibrant neighborhoods. No matter which direction you choose, Charlotte's ready to welcome you. And once here, we hope you'll feel instantly at home. Delivering memorable experiences is Charlotte's DNA. And on behalf of our big-hearted hospitality community, we look forward to seeing you soon. Safe travels.
Welcome back, Alphas, from your break. I hope you had a tasty treat because we now have two fabulous guests. We have Lieutenant Colonel Chris Reardon and Colonel Patricia S. Klop. And I do have to point out her maiden name is Bacon, and because we all love bacon. So thank you so much for being born with that name. And thank you for being here. I do have to point out that a long time ago, I was a United States Marine, active duty, and I would have turned and walked away from both of you because the jewelry that you wear, the shiny status that's pinned to your collar would have scared the bejesus out of me as an 18 to 21 year old. And now I'm here just casually having a conversation. So Semper Fi, Ura, and all that. Sir and ma'am, it's the last time I'm going to say that, but I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. How is your day going?
Outstanding.
Standing. All right.
Really happy to be here. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you very much for hosting us.
Well, thank you for being here because we have a lot of there's a lot. I was reading through your stuff and I wouldn't know what to choose first, but thankfully we have somebody smarter than me that's going to ask the first question to get us kicked off. Ashley Gudermuth.
You, Jeff Daly of the Michigan Dailies. Thank you
Yes.
both for being here, Patty and Chris. Okay, so I want to kick it off. Tell me, what is your mission and why do you do it?
All right, I'll start with this one. All right, so Freedom Fitness America, our simple mission is we train tactical professionals and those whom they serve to be fit for the fight in life. That means to be prepared for danger, crisis, and overcoming obstacles in everyday life. So particularly our values are fitness, faith, family, finances, and freedom. So from a fitness standpoint, all of our general programs as we incorporate both outdoor adventure, like obstacle course type racing, as well as like general like fitness. So think like CrossFit, or in the Marine Corps, they call it like HIIT, and group type of physical training sessions integrated with typically video-based discussions. Some of the more like bigger high events might be a live discussion, but we generally get after topics related to holistic total force fitness, total fitness, but the predominant focus right now in the U.S. military, and then we're looking to branch out to law enforcement, fire rescue, and then also incorporate civilians, particularly from a corporate team building standpoint, working with churches, working with schools. So a lot of that's both from a funding standpoint, but also to expand our concept. So generally the gist of it though is to integrate the aspects of the physical, mental, and spiritual side of the human component to who we are at from a proactive standpoint versus a reactive. So that's the general gist of who we are.
What do you consider a tactical professional to be?
Yeah, good question. So predominantly, like I said, our focus would be active duty, reserve, military. Following that would be some type of law enforcement professional, fire rescue, first responder. So people who have some type of, they're dealing with like from like a government standpoint, especially to go into like harm's way, potentially to help out everyday citizens.
Oh, okay.
Well, don't leave out postal workers. They have dangerous life.
Yeah, gotta watch out for those dogs, right? Where do you get shot at these days? I don't know. Somebody might be upset. Amazon package wasn't delivered on time, you know?
I love the alliteration that you said. Could you say the mission part again?
Yeah, to be fit for the fight and life. So like the general aspect of what that means is like the fight is like the physical, like, hey, you're downrange, you're doing your operation. But life is like life could be a conflict in a battlefield in and of itself. And like Patty and I, we've been seeing this with being in the Marine Corps many years. A lot of the issues with getting people ready to get out the door is what's happening back at home. And so there's a lot of challenges that if you are not prepared to deal with those challenges, then it's going to come out in combat and vice versa. So a lot of what you see today in the veteran world, especially, is there were issues that were not dealt with like before you went off, whatever that crisis is, whether it be a life crisis or as an issue in combat or in some type of operation. And on the back end, you're trying to like do catch up, if you will. And our goal is to give people the skills and to think through the issues ahead of time so that they're better on the back end. The reality is we can't control the crisis. We can't control a term we use now in the military is get left of boom. So boom could be like, physical getting shot at, IED explosion. It could be, hey, I just got a unplanned pregnancy, or, going through a divorce, whatever that looks like in your life. If you are prepared to cope with it ahead of time to the best extent possible, you're likely to be better on the back end. So for example, is a friend of mine, retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel, he was telling me how he read the books on combat and on killing, and he had a very strong faith background. When he and his platoon sergeant in the Marines went into OIF in the initial parts, and they had some pretty heavy ground combat operations, he said, Chris, I experienced not post-traumatic disorder, but actually post-traumatic growth. In other words, like life sucked. There was a lot of hardships he had to work through, but because he was ready to deal with it, as Colonel Grossman, who wrote those books, said, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. He was better able to grapple with it. So that's like a gist of what we're trying to do on the front end versus the back end.
Ooh,
All
I
right,
love
so
that. Post-traumatic growth. That's new.
Yeah.
I think that's super helpful. I think about my whole childhood. I have post-traumatic growth from that.
Right.
well, it sounds like that's something, emotional and or whatever, but it also sounds like something that could be removed, the post-traumatic growth. So.
Like,
Well,
it's
and
benign.
honestly, I think what Ashley, I know she's joking around, or maybe not so much, is that, trauma, the things we go through in life, they stay with us, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to break you. It's kind of like when you go to the gym, you're going to break down your muscles and then you're going to regrow them to get stronger. So life challenges thrown at you, if you cope with them in the right manner, it's not a guarantee, because people can still be broken, and really we get more of the stress disorder, which Patty will be telling her story about healing from that. But it's more, I would say it's more, I've been through my own traumatic instances in life. I've been through, and this one isn't necessarily combat. Like I went through a bankruptcy, a business failure back in 2016. I had a lot of challenges in my family, and it could have broken me, honestly. But because of the way I responded to it actually made me better and stronger on the back end. And so that is a message that we want to send to people, is like, hey, you're going to deal with these difficulties in life. Like, it doesn't matter who you are as a human being, but if you're prepared to meet them head on, you're likely going to come out on the back end better. And that's, I think, what we're starting to find now, is like, we have to be proactive in these situations versus reactive. Like, oh man, like I hear people like, oh, if you join the military is going to break you. You're going to, we're going to spit out, bad citizens, people are going streets, whatever. Whereas I'm thinking like, hey, let's actually make people better. And then they're actually coming out better as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's like a lot of the work people are doing these days they're calling it resiliency.
Right.
And you have some different language, but it sounds similar, and the benefits would greatly enhance the lives of those who have served or are serving. So Patty, that brings me to, as Chris said, you guys are going to expand your mission to cover more people. What are veterans in organizations like the American Legion, are they going to be a target of, because I feel like we could benefit from all of what you guys are doing in terms of fitness. Where the whole health push is really big with the VA right now. Actually the VA, because they could probably pay you better than the American Legion, but the whole health thing is really big, and I'm just wondering if that's gonna eventually be a target market for you.
Yes, so I think the best way to describe it, we all have the similar understanding in the conceptual embracing of what is going on and what do we need to do. So like Chris Reardon, he's the brains behind FFA, Freedom Fitness America. And you could say I'm almost a product of that, not necessarily Fitness Freedom America, but what he's describing, the holistic approach to mind, body, and soul, is what I received. And so I was a tortured soul for 12 years. I did mortuary affairs in Afghanistan. We were personnel retrieval and processing detachment, and I was an officer in charge. We were the first footprint detachment to do mortuary affairs with a troop surge under then President Obama. And so the big battle was Marja, and unfortunately, we were busy. And so with that was a tremendous trauma every day, taking care of human remains, but not just human remains or being exposed to mutilated human remains, but our beloved brothers who paid the ultimate sacrifice. So we grieve deeply. But that was an experience that really stuck with me. And knowing my story, I was a senior officer of all people. I should have my act together and control my emotions and keep it in check. And I was just out of control, all the signs and symptoms of PTSD. And the irony was, I was also a trainer for the Marine Corps for operational stress control and readiness. It was Oscar. And I did so well. I was a master trainer of the year for Marine Forces Reserve. But despite all this, I was still stuck and really blind to how basically consuming and damaging it was. So March 11th of 2022, I received the best gift in my entire life, which was the gift to live life with joy and contentment. I finished 7 weeks of post-traumatic stress disorder treatment through the VA. It was an inpatient treatment process with cognitive therapy, processing therapy. And so that holistic approach and mind, body, soul was extremely powerful. So Chris and FFA, the mission is very clear. My mission, support Chris. I'm an advisor with FFA, but also for me to really share my story far and wide, and to encourage veterans who were really suffering like I was in a pit of PTSD hell, to get the help. And I am so much better of a person. Talking about post-traumatic growth, I am by far a stronger person, resilient, and knowing, just basically going through the gates of fire, and what I've seen, and then be able to have a life worth living on the other end. And I'm just very passionate about that, and knowing that a lot of veterans are stuck like I was, and that there is help. And I love the fitness analogy, because with the fitness center, we understand how to get stronger, and that's a physical vision, rack and stack, kind of doing your reps and sets. And so, but the thing is, you got to do the hard work. And so just by going through a fitness center or being present in a gym doesn't make you stronger. You got to do the hard work. But if you do the hard work, you're going to reap the benefits, and know the fruits of your labor.
I should have talked to you before, because I thought just going in there, getting a green smoothie, everything would be okay.
Right. I know. Well, I have to get my blinders on and pass that smoothie, and then get it after the workout. So yeah.
Well, Jeff, if I could echo something that Patty says, and to get after a little bit more of the logistics of your question. So part of the reality we've come up with is that there is a difference between those who are actually still serving, their mission, their mindset of how we got to get them ready, versus somebody who's on like a veteran. I mean, frankly, they could be in all different types of jobs, but they could be for a civilian. There's different fitness goals. There's different goals of like healing, different life stages. So part of it, we have to adjust some of the fitness programming, the content, where they live. And then we're also looking at how do we grow the base of people, like mainly volunteers, paid professionals, where they're at. So that's why we're focusing initially with the predominant, like the active duty population, because we could track that and know where they're at. And then from there, we could branch out with volunteers, working with other organizations. So for example, this past weekend, I was up in Maine with an organization called Reach Across America, which works with the veteran community, probably familiar with them. And I did a 10K run out there. And I could tell that some of the folks, because they're either out of the military or they're just older civilians in general, were at a different fitness level than I was, right? It just was what it was. So those are the things I have to think about as we look at expanding. But I do want to expand to the veteran community at large, because I think FFA, from a bigger perspective, is I want to help our country really become stronger, both from we look at this from a national security perspective. I'm sure you've heard the issues of like, hey, all these young people are obese, we can't recruit people in the military, or how would our country as a whole deal if we actually got into a major like world war? And that is what the military right now is really focusing on. So I think about that, let alone all the struggles we're having as a country in general with, mental health is a big topic of conversation when you look at all the behavioral challenges. And kind of like what Patty was describing, so much of it is more of a focus on the inside, and you do got to put those reps and sets in. I mean, I just had this with my 5-year-old the other day. He had to take a potty break while we were driving, and he was freaking out in the backseat of the car, and I was literally like working tactical breathe with him. I'm like, all right, David, I need you to breathe in, I need you to breathe out. And I had to have him focus on his breath so he wasn't like getting ready to like scream while he's having this really, difficult moment.
All right, Ash, or Brett?
I'm curious, Patty, how did you decide to go into that VA inpatient treatment?
Mhm.
Oh,
I got real with myself. I went to Afghanistan, and my deployment was April to October 2009. And again, extremely off the charts intense, doing mortuary affairs. And then I rolled right into getting married, and I thought I had the best year of my life, but it was a worse year. It was just very tumultuous, and went to a lot of counseling, couples counseling, individual counseling, and then got plugged in with the VA. So I was doing my best as a good Marine to get those appointments in. And so, but I was like maybe twice a week, an hour. And but by the time, let's say you're at your work, or you got your kids set up with daycare, you commute a half hour, and the therapist is very good with the VA, and she's trying to teach me mindfulness. And I'm thinking, she's like, now imagine the air coming out of your nose and hitting your upper lip. And I'm driving home like, what does the air coming out of my nose have anything to do with being relaxed? So I didn't have time to process it and really get the traction it needed. And so then I had the perfect storm in my life. And just like what Chris shared, life still happens to all the military service members. They don't care if you're active duty or reserve, or even a veteran. And the perfect storm was my dad had passed, and I was extremely close to my father. And my mom had already passed. So, dealing with being an adult orphan, and then just got slammed with all the responsibilities, the youngest of 4, taking care of the household, the selling of the house and real estate, the power of attorney, executor of the estate, trustee of the trust. My brother couldn't handle money. He had struggles with addictions. And so I was out of my mind. Then I went back to teaching, and then I was just a pressure cooker. I had to step away from teaching. Just a lot of series of events that happened where I had terrible shame and failure. And then I just really hit rock bottom, and I knew I need immersion. I knew I needed immersion, because these half-hour appointments are just a tease. I need the skills. I need to get treatment. And so that finally, when I became real and honest, and that's the thing about truth, I don't mean to go off the subject, but the truth is a stubborn thing. It'll manifest sooner or later. And so you can deny it or ignore it, but it will prevail. So finally the truth hit me in the face and said, I knew I needed help if I want to have a life worth living. So it took at least a year by the time I got my personal affairs, so there's no interference, and went to treatment. And I remember them checking on me each month, making sure I was good and not suicidal, and just doubting, like, how am I as a colonel getting treatment? I of all people, I'm taking a seat from somebody else. I don't deserve it. I should have my act together. I got a couple masters, and and yet I just really received the grace of the VA treatment of exactly what I needed, which was all those skills, and learning about PTSD, and trying to give myself a little slack, that I went through such an intense traumatic experience that, yeah, it's your body naturally responding to this stress of life and death. So I finally went, and I had a lot of shame about going to treatment. I only told my husband, my best friend, and maybe my in-laws. And I told everybody I'm going on a military assignment, which is true, but they didn't have to know the details. And I went away for 7 weeks, and I loved it, because I knew I was getting the healing I needed. And there was a moment where I was still serving. I was still in the reserves. And there was a moment I really felt with God, and I felt so much better. I was like, thank you, Lord. I feel better. I feel healing. I feel just this burden of lifted, like I was in this deep pit of PTSD, and his best guardian angels just took me by my flanks and pulled me up out of this pit. And I remember thinking, well, I really should share this because I know other veterans are suffering in silence like I was. And I thought, oh no, I better not. I'm still in uniform and I don't want to rock the boat. And there's a stigma about mental health. And I'll just, wait till I retire. And I felt like God, hitting me on the shoulder says, yeah, nice try that again. You're going to share your story while you're still in uniform. Others are suffering in silence, and you can share your story as encouragement, an example, maybe inspiration for those to get help. And I got to tell you, on this side, it's glorious. I turned 50. I have like just so much life I'm looking forward to. And like I said, joy and contentment with this gift from the VA, through treatment. So when I left there, I started writing my story, and I'm about to publish. It's being published through Leathernet magazine of September, which happens to be suicide a month awareness. And so, yeah, so that's my personal purpose, just to really share that, that I get it. And the thing about it being a veteran is I understand that darkness and the pain and the hurt, and you just want to get out of that. So I do get the feeling of suicide, but veterans of all people, because we went to serve our country, and whether here domestic or overseas, to countries that we know are so different from America, that we of all people should know that the life that we live, for those veterans who had to pay the ultimate sacrifice and did not come home, that we should be living that great life with joy and contentment. And so that's kind of, sharing my story about where the full circle of going for treatment.
I would say that I want to remind the alphas that link to her full story will be in the show notes. Ashley, you were going to say something?
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think there's a story that went around about a commander that used to go every week. He would go to mental health and make it a big deal of knowing that he was going there for his weekly appointment. And then the therapist eventually said, well, why are you here? Every week you tell me that everything's fine. He said, I just want people to see that it's okay to come here.
Well, I'm sorry to cut you off. Ashley, it's funny you say that. I read in Task and Order magazine about a very senior officer, like 3-star general, speaking about that, having it on the calendar and being open. And I was like, yeah, that's a good start, being open the dialogue. And it's like, okay, but I can tell you, I'm showing a whole lot more than my calendar. I'm showing my rear end, by going into great detail of where I started with my PTSD, which is before Afghanistan. I also deployed to Iraq. There was definitely trauma there as well. So I go for leaders, we have to it's not enough to say, hey, go to mental health. I'm like, what does that look like? And I really break it down, all my fears and anxieties, all my reservations from, the beginning to the end. And then just bear it all. I'm bearing it all, which is so counter culture to the Marine Corps, and especially as a senior officer. So I got to say, I just feel like it's so critical to break the stigma of going for mental health, because a stigma is only a stigma if you respect it and give it power. But when you give it power, then it's, you're just paralyzed in fear, and so you got to get over that. And now I don't have any shame or feeling like that, just feeling like a failure. I feel just really a purity about it in my experience.
If I could echo something that Patty just said too, and I think what Ashley was describing about this transparency thing with leaders. I'm recognizing this right now as I'm working with young Marines that have a different leadership approach than even I saw when I first came in, of being vulnerable to my weaknesses and talking about like mistakes, things that went wrong in the past, hardships I went through, because they're dealing with a lot of issues. And when they find that, hey, you're a human being, you're not just like the senior officer that, they just look up to like a god, if you will, like you're just like them, but you've like been able to find out ways to cope. They're a lot more open to having those dialogues and discussions. And it's starting to be a cultural shift now in the military. And I don't think it's weaker. I think it's actually stronger in general, because we're actually connecting with our folks so we can actually see. It's kind of like if your kids, if you as a parent are always like, I don't want to hear my kids' struggles. You're always shutting them down. When things go wrong, they're not going to talk to you. But if you have an open dialogue with your kids, they'll come to you when things are bad or good. And now that line is open. And you ideally are able to get to resolve issues before they become a problem. Like, so suicide is, one of the bigger challenges where you're like, hey, somebody's going to take their life, and it's very hard to stop somebody once they're in act. I got a whiff of this when I was in Bahrain in 2020 to 2021. This is in the height of the pandemic. We had a Marine take his life jumping off a high-rise building in Bahrain. And I just went through this safe assist training on how to talk to somebody if they're thinking about committing suicide. And it hit me that like nobody was going to be present to talk to that Marine. Like he was going to do it. And really the only way to resolve that issue was to talk about his problems and whatever was going on before that happened and have that engagement. And I remember that our general at the time, after he watched what happened, there was an issue where the staff and officers and the Marines were largely segregated between two buildings because of COVID. He said, I'm going to let the staff and O's like actually talk to these, junior Marines and circulate between the buildings and take that risk because it was so important to have that engagement. And so I think that's part of what we want to do with the FFA is have regular engagement, ideally at least on a weekly level with units, if not more. And what we're finding when units do that, and they have these type of regular human interactions where you have the senior leaders, so the chief law officers, the field grade officers, the senior enlisted, and they're engaging with the junior troops, and it's up and down about very real and deep issues. I've had conversations where we talk about death, we talk about suicide, and we have those real honest adult conversations. It doesn't necessarily like make some things easier, but people know that they're not alone. They recognize other people have similar struggles, and they now know that they could trust somebody to talk about those problems.
Well, Chris, I want to, because I know we're going to lose Patty here in just a few minutes.
Oh, it's okay. We're good. We're plenty. I have another hour.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, then
yeah.
we can
Sorry,
just-
because I'm
then I can
1 hour
pontificate.
behind. I'm 1 hour
That's okay.
behind.
All right. So Chris, you brought up a few things. I kind of wanted to get some more in-depth information from you, or connect it to our audience. So one of the things you talked about was the recruiting issue in America. As we all know, there's only one branch that's going to meet their recruiting goal this year, and I think we know who that is.
Hoorah.
But as for the rest of them, they need a deeper pool to draw from. So I think your mission aligns with our mission in that our tagline is simply veterans strengthening America. I actually have to say that in a radio voice. I can talk normal, but when I say veterans strengthening America, I have to shift because to me, it's that important. So I'm hoping that what you're doing and what we're doing can be done, in tandem, because I do believe the national security perspective that you already brought up is a very real thing. It's a real problem, and it's going to take leadership from organizations like yours and this one, because we are, guess what I'm going to say, veterans strengthening America. So I hope that you can help, sir.
Yeah, well, let me take a stab at that because I've actually thought about like the deeper national security issue. So it's one thing to focus on the military. There's a lot of focus from Congress, the executive branch, rightfully so, because you could control it. But then you look at this recruiting pool, and so you're saying like, well, what are we going to do about the greater national security issue that we're finding? Like my wife and I were just talking this past week we were on vacation about like if we went to war as a country, like a World War II, World War III type style conflict, would the draft come back? What would happen when you got these recruiting numbers down? And part of what I would like to help out with this as an organization is having like active duty military volunteers or veterans who are going into like, we'll call it colleges, working with high schools. And there's a direct engagement, people to people. We're strengthening physically, we're actually we're gonna work out. People got to be in shape there. That's important, and they've got to lead by example. But we're also going to have real human dialogue about leadership, about life. and then just like build relationships. And I think that relationship building is critical. So I think about when I came in the Marine Corps, one of the reasons why was I was in Boy Scouts when I was a kid, and I had various veterans who were part of the Boy Scout troop, and I was able to understand more about the military lifestyle. Like in my family, I only had like World War II veterans who at this point were much older, or like even like the Korean War. I had an uncle serve in Vietnam, and he didn't have a really good, background from that. So those leaders and Boy Scouts were critical to shape me. But also, I was in Marine Corps JROTC when I was in high school, and I think about like in my program, and this is like I remember when 9/11 happened, I was still in high school. A lot, probably about 10% of that organization in Connecticut at that time went off to serve in the military. And I think about I actually want to be in the Navy initially, and I decided I want to be a Marine because of these two Marine retired first sergeants. They had a really deep impact on me, just because I got to spend 4 years with them, talking to them. And the military service chiefs have actually talked about that. A lot of the recruiting comes from people who have like family members in the military. I think it's almost like 80%. And so what that's showing you is when you're asking people to sign the dotted line, to literally be willing to give their life for their country, to take injury or whatever, if you don't have a human connection with another service member or veteran, it's hard to tangibly wrap your mind around that. And so I think the Army has started to talk about this, like the senior general in the Army is like, we have to get away from this, like, hey, we're gonna give you all these benefits. You're gonna get the 9/11 GI Bill. You're gonna get to go see the world. Like, there's a lot of other companies where you could do that. But when we really talk about what does it mean to really serve your country, like what I think about, I've been in the Marine Corps now 16 years. I talk to a lot of different folks about the military, some who have joined the military. I give them the good, bad, and the ugly. But I'm like, I love this. And they get to see that, and they really get to see the heart. And then we come alongside them. I think that's going to have a greater impact on really getting those recruiting numbers. I know the Marine Corps, my wife was telling me a story where this one female recruiter, she was having so much success with people because she was actually developing empathy. She was asking people their life values, their goals, and their stories versus trying to pitch the Marine Corps party line. And she was like, well, I think we could work with you. And they were like, yeah, sign me up. So I think that's a shift in terms of how we look at recruiting and developing that base.
I think it's interesting because Ashley and I did a story maybe a month ago. There was a general in the Marine Corps, and his approach to recruiting is, yeah, I'm not sure you're good enough to be a Marine.
Yes,
And
I know.
actually would turn and walk away. He turned and walked
Yes.
away. And the person he talked to was like, I'll show him. And
Exactly.
I think it was at the Naval Academy, wasn't it?
Well, that's actually a frequent kind of approach or strategy. That what you just said was actually General Berger, who just
Yes.
stepped down as a commandant. He was
Oh, yeah.
speaking about his experience because he went to I think Tulane, and he saw a Marine and Junior ROTC, like, oh no, don't waste your time. And it was as soon as you say that, and I've seen that in other situations where there's all these recruiters, but then it's a school assembly in high school, and the Marine goes up and he doesn't talk very long, but it says, well, I'm scanning the audience and I don't see anybody who's going to qualify. So don't bother talking to me. And man, they are just like, zoom up like a bunch of bees, waiting their turn. So it's the intangible that the Marine is offering. But yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, that's a great story. So it does sound like our missions they're aligned, but we're different fields of battle on this singular
Yes.
mission. So
I agree.
I
Yes.
appreciate all that you're doing. Ashley, what do you got there? You can say bye or
You, do you want to say bye, Ashley? I know I'm going to do some extra push-ups today for both of you.
Outstanding.
I run every day. That's my thing. I've done it in OCD form. I've done it every day for 8.5 years.
Wow. Good for you.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
It's too much. It's like, there's no, sometimes people will say to me, well, what about when you don't want to run? I just do it anyway. I just go do it.
Awesome.
But I've tried to change it up to try to make it more like, so my brain doesn't melt, because it's just really boring, so I do things now where I pick up litter while I run, or after I hit a mile, I do push-ups. If I stop, I do my thing is, if you're going to stop, you either have to pick something up. So 1P, which litter. You have to do push-ups or you have to do a plank. So it's a 3 Ps of my running.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Wow.
But what I thought was interesting is just bringing in like the whole person concept. Like your website talks about bringing chaplains in and bringing all kinds of things like that, and it's something that I haven't seen before. So I think it's super cool, and I want you guys to keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you,
appreciate
Ashley.
that. Yeah,
And I want you to have gear that says your name. Where is it? Freedom Fitness
Oh, Fitness
America. I would
America.
wear that.
It's awesome.
He wants all the attire you're willing to sell to him. So
Yeah, all the
hats,
merch.
everything.
We could do that. So I'll also touch base that Ashley was getting after his total fitness. So the Marine Corps just put out a total fitness survey, and I know Patty and I both had their comment about it. And something I put in there was that I believe that the Marine Corps and the services have a lot of money that they're throwing at the problem. They have a lot of high-paid professionals looking at this issue, but there's the disconnect really is the development of the people at the tactical level, like the staff officers, the junior officers, the NCOs. If they're not developed to have the conversations and run this program, it's never going to go anywhere. Because frankly, so I've talked a lot to chaplains, particularly about spiritual fitness. And I'm like, for example, in an infantry battalion, you got one chaplain for like 1,000-member infantry battalion, give or take. So there's no way that chaplain's going to meet all the spiritual needs by him or herself to really work with that unit. But if you flip the model for a moment and you develop and from the chaplain perspective, like a lay leader, or they call them peer leaders, you're going to have a better output. And that's one of the things we're really big on is this training holistically of those small unit leaders. Because as I talked to 3rd Fleet, their CMC, he was saying he was finding that the chiefs in particular were really big on just providing resources and say, hey, go talk to this person, go talk to that, and not really helping their sailors really try to resolve the issues. So a lot of what we're trying to do is give practical, tangible content and skill sets that an everyday person could pick up and do to transfer that human-to-human connection. Because without it, like, we could have all the technology in the world, all the great buildings, et cetera, and it's all going to be for naught.
Well, that is philosophy and wisdom that we can leave on that high note right there. I want to thank both of you for not just being here today, but for the work that you're doing. And I think that this venue, it's important because the things that you do affect all parts of people's lives. You brought up suicide before, and on our end, and Patty, we talked about it before recording, the Be the One program of the American Legion, whose main and only goal is to end veteran suicide. Like I said before, our tagline is Veterans Strengthening America. And we are continuing to serve our nation. And one of the big problems that you're looking at, and it's the recruiting pool and how many people. It's shocking how many people, not just physically but mentally, need waivers and waivers on waivers on waivers to get into the military, and a lot of them even can't do that. So there's plenty of work to be done, and I'm so excited that the two of you are out there on the front line fighting that fight, because I think that the country is stronger with every life that you two touch. So please continue to do that. Get AI to clone you. Send 1 or 2 or 17 to me, and maybe they can help me fix my existence as well. I don't know. That's a tough job. Maybe 20 AI robots, but let's just get it done, and we will fix this country. Alphas out there, I need to enlist or commission, I don't know, all of you to take on this mission. This mission is probably the most important thing that we can do in our continued service. It's taking care not only of each other, but that is really important as well, but you also need to take care of yourself. It's just like in the plane, when the mask, you put it on you because you're no good to anybody else if you can't breathe and you're trying to put it on them. So take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of our country. And we're going to come back and talk about what Chris and Patty were talking about, or as I should say, the Lieutenant Colonel and the Colonel were talking about. And we're going to do it without them present. They're going to have to tune in to hear what Ashley and I have to say. So we were going to be right back after the break.
To look out for those that served, we must be relentless. To influence Washington to do the right thing, not just for our veterans, but for the country, we must be organized. To inspire the next generation of leaders, we must be united. We must be Legion, the American Legion. Join today at legion.org/join.
Welcome back from the break, Alphas. Ashley, did you enjoy your break?
Loved it.
Yeah, it's the best 10 seconds of my life. What would you get as a takeaway today?
Reaching out, getting help, good. Things can lay dormant for a while. Oh, the phrase post traumatic growth.
Yes.
Love that.
Post-traumatic growth, which is you have to work to have that. So it's, and I love the work that they're doing. I love how it coincides with the work that the American Legion does. Thank you for all the work that you do, Chris and Patty, with their organization. And I want some gear. I didn't see any gear on the website. I want to put those words on my body. And I don't do tattoos, so it's going to have to be clothing. All right, here we go into the final stretch, what we call rapid fire. All right, here we go. Rapid fire number. That's just one, because Marines always hit their mark on the first shot. All right, VA hospitals outperform others in patient care, analysis finds. This is from the American Legion. VA hospitals outperform non-VA hospitals by a wide margin, according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services annual overall hospital quality star ratings released July 26. There were 67% of Department of Veterans Affairs hospitals included in the CMS report that received either 4 or 5 stars, compared to only 41% of non-VA hospitals. This was the first time VA hospitals were included in the CMS star ratings. The CMS report focuses on 5 categories: mortality, safety of care, readmission, patient experience, and timely and effective care. The more stars out of 5, the better a hospital performed on the available quality measures. You probably don't have much experience in a VA hospital. Have you heard stories?
Oh, I've definitely heard a lot of stories, but when people are telling me stories, they're not good stories.
They're never good stories.
They're not, no. And I'm always suspicious of any, data. Who knows where it came from? What's the deal? Is it real? But
are you suspicious of anecdotal data? Like the people telling you things?
Oh, that's what I take as gospel. And you should.
Anecdotal data, good. Actual crunch numbers, you can't trust that stuff.
Bad. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's one of our considerations on where my husband wants to retire. So that's
which one's the good one?
Well, yeah, just a near one in general.
Well, you better make sure they didn't all get it.
Yeah, we'll look it up. We'll look up I'll get some anecdotal data. Don't worry about it. I know where to get my info.
Anecdotal data. Well, I'll give you some anecdotal data. I am sitting here today because of the VA hospital in West Los Angeles, California. So there's some anecdotal data for you. 100% of the Jeff Dailies are still here and kicking. Oh, that's math data. Ignore that. Just ignore me saying it was amazing, except for the food. Their food is equally bad as a regular civilian hospital. Horrible, horrible stuff. If you are a chef at the VA hospital in West Los Angeles, I apologize, but do better. Okay, we're going to do the rapid fire number 2. You're going to like this one. Can you please give this young man some advice? A U.S. Army soldier went viral on TikTok for making videos mocking Gen Zs on the battlefield, and now he wants to be an influencer. This is from Yahoo.com. Anthony Gonzalez, a U.S. Army soldier, went viral on TikTok for making videos mocking Gen Z on the battlefield. Now the 21-year-old wants to give up his military career to be an influencer, per the New York Post. I feel like I want to be a star, Gonzalez told the Post. This was their 3-bullet summary of the article. Are you familiar with him? Is he an influencer?
He has not influenced me.
Okay.
I was trying to find the video, and dang, I don't know. I say come back when you've made, 100 of those. One video is nothing.
No, not in this day and age. No.
Like people will be like, "Oh my God, I got 1 million views," and you're like, "Great."
And then you look at their next video and they have 12.
Yeah, it is the consistency that does it. The phrase "I feel like I was born to be a star" makes me go, "Oh God, you are probably the person that will react to that the worst, and it will destroy you." like I'm not famous, but I get a lot, like people recognize me on the street and they'll ask to take pictures and things like that. A lot of times I'm coming out of bathrooms. Like you don't ever have a private moment. Like
I've apologized for that umpteen times.
Yeah, but you keep doing it.
Okay.
Like, and I don't even have like any level of that. I think you gotta have a strong brain. I don't think you have to want to, like when somebody says they want to be famous, I like to have a side goal. Like I want to help people. And then as a byproduct, you use your influence for good or something like that. So like I said, I haven't seen his stuff, but if it's something he wants to do, then he should do it. Giving up your military career is probably not a good idea this early on.
Well, he can't give up his military career for another 2 years. So
yeah, he's got some time, but he can build it up during that. Just try to use whatever influence you have to do good with it, because otherwise it'll destroy you.
And I do want to give him some credit. He didn't say he wants to be a star.
Oh, I feel like I was born to be a
star.
That's whole nother level. And we can work through that with the VA therapy or those good hospitals.
Right. Oh boy. Born to be a star. With that,
I hope that he does accomplish everything he wants to. I just say use it for good, not just to be famous. Because
if you do become a star, you need to do a collab with Ashley Goodman.
It's also like there's not that like the money, like he needs money. He's gonna have to eat, so don't give up your job. Make the videos until they pay. This other stuff pays for itself. Advice, because otherwise you'll be poor.
That's advice not just for Anthony Gonzalez. That's advice for all of you, because you know how many people have just asked me, what software y'all use? Because I think I'm gonna make a podcast.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. It won't take any effort at all, right?
I'm like, what are you gonna talk about? I don't know, just whatever comes up, and just talk about stuff, my day. Like, okay.
All right, sounds great.
All right, we're gonna go on to and whatever you do not do rapid fire. I will become litigious. I've never sued anybody, but if you do rapid fire at the end of your podcast, we're coming for you. All right, we're gonna do rapid fire number. Ooh, that would be 3. Craig Morgan, enlists in Army Reserve, live on stage at the Grand Ole Opry. Excited to once again serve my country. So, formerly known or still known as country star Craig Morgan, also now known as Staff Sergeant Craig Morgan. All right, Craig Morgan is stepping up for his country once again. The country music star, 59, surprised his fans on Saturday night when he enlisted and was sworn into the U.S. Army Reserve live on stage during his set at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. After performing several hits in civilian clothing, Morgan briefly exited the stage before returning dressed in his military uniform. He then proudly took the oath in a swearing-in ceremony officiated by General Andrew Pappas, commander of the U.S. Army Forces Command, prompting the crowd to erupt in cheers and applause. I'm excited to once again serve my country and be all I can be in hopes of encouraging others to be a part of something greater than ourselves, Morgan said in a statement sent to People. I love being an artist, but I consider it a true privilege and honor to work with what I believe are the greatest of Americans, my fellow soldiers. Well, in the list of greatest, I mean, there are Marines.
I'm curious how, when I saw that, he was 59. So is he going to be in for another year and then he's out? Like, well, did they make him fill out all the paperwork? You know, like
I think in the reserves, he's going to get some age waivers because I think he's a walking commercial is his MOS.
I would join the Army Reserve as a
Walking commercial?
The walking commercial happily. I would do it right now. I would absolutely. I guess I should go Air Force though. Remember when the Army was going to send me to boot camp?
Yeah.
That kind of fell apart. I'm still up for it.
I know that all but one of the branches is having recruiting issues. Is this gimmicky?
I would say it doesn't matter if it works. Like people are going to shoot anything down, but if one person's like, "Oh man, that's pretty cool," then do it. Screw it.
Is that the predicted outcome? Do you think? I'm wondering if it's going to work.
I don't know.
I wonder what happened when Pat Tillman enlisted. Did a lot of people follow? That's a lot of people did follow.
I mean, I just did a comedy show for his organization just last week in Chicago, and the good that they're doing. Oh my goodness! And the whole idea is not to even like to remember what Pat Tillman did, because a lot of the people that are like joining now wouldn't know. Maybe. And it's to just continue on with his values of giving up that NFL career and then going and serving, you know.
And he even enlisted and he had a college degree. So that was weird.
Dude was all in.
He's like, I just want to go do my thing. All right. So we're going to go do our thing as soon as Ashley gives us permission to leave. We can't leave without Ashley's blessing.
Okay. And let us pray. Don't forget to subscribe to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I don't know where you listen to podcasts. Could be on your ham radio. That's up to you. If you could leave us a review and give us a big old 5 stars, I would appreciate it. Otherwise, I'm planning on organizing a mandatory children's concert at your workplace. Even if you work from home, they'll be outside and your windows will have to be open. And where the children will play for 3 hours on their recorders very poorly. It'll just be like, 3, just that over and over again. So 5 stars. Okay. If you have a guest recommendation, go to legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. Click on the suggest a guest link.
Is that a preview of this concert that they're going to have to endure? Is that what we just witnessed?
I would love to be a part of the concert.
I actually want to buy a recorder now. Thank you for reminding me what a fun time that was in life. In 3rd grade or whatever that was when we played the recorders. Amazing. All right. Thank you, Ashley, for giving us permission. And I feel like I should say amen. With that, I want to see all of you in Charlotte, or not all of you, that's a lot of people, but I want to see many of you in Charlotte with smiling faces and telling me good stories about the VA so that I could share that anecdotal evidence with Ashley Gutermuth. And you're going to pick up some swag that super producer Allie is so proud of. She's putting it into the camera lens that you can't see, but because she's subliminal. And this is my favorite. And you'll know which one is my favorite when you visit the booth and pick up your American Legion Tango Alpha Lima swag. You're going to know. Just going to know. But until we get there, let's just go ahead and let's shut this down. Season 4, episode 172, mission complete.